So we're now moving on to the legs for our deer, and there's a template included in the pattern, which is just these 3 lines: short, medium and long. There's no measurements, because if you were to print the pattern, say at 70 or 80 or 90%, then these will shrink down accordingly, so they will be the correct size for your chosen size of deer. So we're going to start off with the front legs, and for the front legs we need 2 medium and 4 long. So there's our medium template, top one, and what we're going to do, we've cut them at that length, cut 2 at that length. We're now just going to mark up. I'm going to use a felt tip pen for you, but you can actually do it without, so it's up to you. So you mark up that point there and that point there, and that's going to be bent later at those markings. And do that for all of them. So you've got your 2 medium, try and get them as straight as possible, which I know is difficult, but they actually, once they're in the tubing, they bend quite nicely, so quite easily. And mark it there. Then you've got 4 long ones, and so mark them as per your template. There and there, and do that for the other 3 as well. So you've got, say, 2 medium and 4 long as per your template with your markings, and then we'll carry on from there. So we now take our 2 medium wires, cut as per the template and marked up where we are going to bend them. So we bend at that point, like so. So that actually forms the leg, and this bit goes underneath the body. So then bend that down. That's the first bit. And the same, you've got your mark in there anyway. 1, 2. Now with those 2 together, that's the first bit of our leg, and we now have to wrap it in masking tape, which makes it easier to deal with, but it also strengthens it up as well. The only thing is, don't overdo the wrapping, because in a minute this has got to go into a tubing and you don't want it to be too thick. So line up your 2 at the top and try and keep those smooth, because don't twist them, because that's going to go underneath the body and you don't want it to be too bulky. So then just start wrapping the 2 wires together. Put it quite tight so your wires are joining really well. And then do the other side. So that's one done. As I say, the masking tape just adds a bit of strength and it makes it easier to deal with as well. So that, put that to one side, and now we take 2 of the long ones. And again, in fact, actually, do something different on this one. Let's just put a piece of tape around the middle, just to keep them together, and then do it this way. From your mark, put your tape and then we can bend it later. It might make it a bit easier to do actually. If you're just dealing with one long thing rather than two getting in the way. So put your tape on all the way down to the end, and remember to keep your two wires as close together as possible, and don't overdo the taping because, as I say, it's got to be fitting in a minute into your tube. So I've taped this one to the marking, to your permanent marker there, and then just, you can check it when you come to this as well, that there's my little mark there. So then you bend that like so, and then the other one you bend like so. So you can see that's very wide, so that's much wider than our deer. And what you do then is to bend it right in the middle. That's your 4 inches actually just there, so you bend it because that acts as a point that you can use to secure it to the body. And then pull these out, and what will happen is that will attach to that, and one will be going, this is the underneath the carrot, underneath the body. This one comes up the front, and then it'll be exactly the same one to go along the back. And those will be joined together and they will form your legs. So I'll do the last one for you. So that's what we've got so far. Straight one and two this shape. So now we've got to join the three together. First of all, it's easier if you make sure that they are the right distance. So that curve and that curve is about right, and then that curve and that curve is about right. So put it together like that. Actually, I'm going to just have a couple of pieces of tape cut off ready for you. So I'm going to put those two together. Tape that nice and tight. So I can put those two together, tape that, so what's going to happen is that this bit is going to go one way, and we're going to pull it over like that. So that's going to go a bit further over later, but at the moment just so that you know that roughly where that's going. And then this one is going on this side of it. So you've got a V, the flat bit, and then the V. Don't put the two V's together because otherwise you've got the underbody one in the way. So again, tape that together so it's nice and tight, because remembering that's got to go in the tube. And again, this side. And now we're ready to put those into the piece of tube. I've got my tube here, just cut off one, and just to the template, which is the leg part of the template. That's my two tubes. And then get these nice and tight together and thread the tube on the end. You can see now that if you put too much tape on, for instance that bit at the top is too much, so that'll have to come off. It was really just to keep it together while I showed you the process. Easy if I could get it off though. I've obviously got some very good masking tape here. and then do the same to the other one, nice and tight. Insert the tube up into that. I expect that will have to come off as well, so I will take it off. Oh, that's got to come off. Okay, so that's your front legs ready. You may think, well, they're a bit springy, but once you actually fit that, then you can adjust your legs accordingly, you can bend them around, and with the tube on, it makes that a little bit more possible. So just going over that again, make sure when you fit it, the wires together, you've got the V at one end, then the cross member, and then the other V. Otherwise, if you've got two at one end, one bar is going to go over the other. And at a later point, we will be spreading those two out, one to go up the body, the front chest, and one to go underneath the body. So that's that one done, and I'll just show you a picture of the last one. Sorry, I've got it here, the back one, which I've already done. So with the back legs, you need 4 small, or short ones, sorry, short, not small, 4 short ones and 4 long ones. And the reason you've got the 4 short ones is because with this one, these short ones, if they're broken like that, it means that you can move them slightly, so that the deer has got his one leg is a little bit further back. So with this option, it means that you can do that. Otherwise, if it was fixed, you're not really able to move it across. So that's the only difference with the back leg, but otherwise the principle is the same. So now we're at the stage of fitting the legs to the deer. So we've got the front and the back, and the front has got the 2 like that. It's the back that's got the closed ones because they're going to be shaped. So the first thing to do is to find the good place to work. Yeah, I think that's better. So we've got our front legs. You can see there's a seam there. Now my bar going across, I put about 1.25 inches from that seam, which I think it gives a nice view from the side, so just on 1.25 inches. You can adjust that obviously how you want, but it's nice to have a bit of a chest on it before it gets into the leg, so that's my preferred positioning. And then I'll simply pin it in place. Now I'm lucky because I've got these longer pins. Now if you haven't got them, you might struggle a little bit. You know, if you've just got the normal small pins. But if you press the wire down, the foam, or oops, that one went ping, the wadding pings up, so you can actually get your pin in across there. So perhaps it would work with the smaller ones. And then the point, try and get it in the middle of your seam here, so then you know it's in the middle of the body. And do quite a few all round so that it's nice and secure. And you might need to bend this one a bit further up, but just do so. If you haven't got longer needle pins, maybe the odd few needles in there will help. So that's your front legs pinned in place. For the stance of the deer, if it's facing you, then you want its back leg further back. So this is the side of the leg where I'm going to just put it slightly back. So put a mark on there so you know, otherwise you'll do a lot of work and then you find that you've got it, the stance is wrong. So that's my marker to say that this side is going to be just slightly further back. So we've got our back legs like this. We've got this point that will go up its rear end, up on its bottom, and these two lay on the tummy. So again, on about that position, that's about 1 inch, 1.25 inches in from the back, and this will go up either side, and the V in the not quite in the middle because we're going to move it. So that's where I want my leg to be further back. So I'm going to adjust that just so that it's slightly on the tilt, so it's like that. And you'll see these wires, this one is going a little off centre, and these wires you can carry on through almost along the seam line. But you've got that facility then of making that near side leg, if you like. This one is just that bit further back to be shaped. So again, put your pins in, and when you've done this part of it, you're going to stand it up anyway and make sure that it looks good. So this will take you a while, I won't deny that. Even if you have 2 or 3 goes at it, it's worth it to make sure it's about right. And you can see there's a curve there and my wire isn't curved enough, so I'm just going to have a go at that. Make sure the legs are even, although they're not parallel, they need to be evenly spaced against the actual body itself. How I can show this to you. No, it wrong way. So it is actually standing now, and now you've got to give it a little bit more shape to the legs. And there we have the deer with the legs stitched on in place. So I've gone over all the wires, both the front and the back, and up the chest. And I've tried to pick up as much of the wadding as I can as I go underneath, so it's really nice and firm. Now you may need to do this and fiddle around with it so that it stands. See, I've done it so that I've got this back leg coming down, going back and then down, so you've got the back leg, but the front 2 legs are virtually the same. So it gives it more stability if the front legs are the same, and then the back 2 are just at a slight angle, gives it a bit more character. So I've cut out the legs now, but you really have to think about this. The front ones aren't too bad because you just need 2 of the pattern fabric and 2 of the shell, and obviously make sure you've got a left and a right. So that's those 2 done. And the back ones, they're different shapes. So make sure you've got one of each, but that the pattern itself, you've got one of the left leg, which goes there, and then you've got one of the right leg, which goes there, with the right side facing inside. So just think about it, and then I nearly cut out 4 of the shell fabric. So just take a bit of time and make absolutely sure that you've got 4 inside legs out of your pattern fabric or finished fabric, and then the outer one being in the shell. I mean, you can do the outer one in the shell as well, but if you're going to patch the body, you're going to want a few patches on the legs as well. But I've done it this way so that I can show you the process. So now what we need to do is to stitch these right side together, all the legs, with your 10mm seam allowance. So all 4 legs, stitch those together. Oh, and just from this point down here, leave the bottom open and leave the top open. Okay, so once you've sewn your legs from the top down to the bottom, but leaving the toe open, the foot open, nick them, or snip it so on the curve so that it turns nicely. Turn them inside out, and that's the reason why we're using finished fabric on the inside, because the underbody is a bit awkward to stitch through, so at least you've then not got to worry about that aspect of it. We will be covering obviously the bottom bit with a piece of fabric, so that's how it's done. So the next process is to, with every leg, put a pin in the base, a couple of pins just to stop the wadding from going through the other end. And then you remove the plastic, the tubing, and pop that down inside the leg, which you then stuff. And when you stuff it, the idea is that the tube remains in the middle, so try and stuff it from the foot as well if you want to, or from the top, and try and keep that tube in the middle of your stuffing so that you can't feel it or see it. And the idea is that when you actually, apart from giving strength to the legs, it also means that when you come to patch it, you're not hitting your pieces of wire with the masking tape, which makes it awkward. So do that with all 4 legs and patch as you require. I mean, the inside you might just want to put a few patches to go over and make it a little bit more interesting, and stuff it from the foot up to the top of the tubing, and then we're going to fit those to the body. So now it's time to fit our legs. I've done the patching on, this is the outside, so I've come up to this far. And these threads are just where I'm going to continue with my stitching later. So this is the underbody bit where I've put the finished fabric on the inside. So that's going to go on there like that. And this is the other one that will be going here. So I've covered the base. I'm going to have all the 4 sort of legs up to this point, the same fabric. And then I've put a bit of extra at the top there. And I've stuffed up until I can just feel the plastic either end there. So this is still open, and you can poke that back or stitch it or pin it if you want to, but it's fairly well in place there. And then at the top, this is, I can just feel the tube there. So now what we do, making sure you've got them the right way round, we're then going to put this tube back onto the wires. So make sure it's all nice and fitting nice and close together, and pop it onto the wire, the tube onto the wire, and then push up until it meets the top. Hold your hand over the bottom there, otherwise the tube will just come out at the bottom. So right up to the top, so you can see that's up close to the top itself. So we do the other one as well. And again, make sure that you've got the fabric the right way round. So I've got my finished fabric on the inside. And again, that's right up to the top, and I can feel just the wires slightly at the bottom there. So now I'm going to pull that one back out of the way. Underneath the body, we're going to, let me see that, yes, we're going to trim this back. This will make another patch anyway, so it won't be wasted. Trim that back, not fully, but just do a little bit at a time, and very roughly the seams will sort of go along like that, sort of along the side of the body, and by trimming that back, that enables you to spread that out a little bit more. See, then it's fairly flat on that side. So I'm going to pin that in place just roughly, and this is where this is going to take you time. It takes me time anyway, so this is although it is a pattern, a lot of it depends on your input, creativity, and this is why I said in the first place it might be something for a attended course, but I can't do that, so I'm hoping that I can get it across on this pattern. So when you've got to that stage, you've got your seams lined up roughly like that. I'm going to pull that one out a little bit more. Now you've got to fill that void, because this is his shoulder, so his shoulder is going to be a little bit more pronounced, and it needs to be a smooth transition. You don't want any hollows in there. This excess fabric gives you the opportunity to sort of pull it up in place. And work your way around, make sure it's still in position, because I can feel the wires at the base there through the tubing. And when you feel that you've got a nice blend underneath there, pull it up nice and tight. I'll just put a pin there for the time being. And then work on this side area. And then round here, a lot of this will be trimmed back, so So we're getting there now with that one. Oops. I'm going to have a go at the other side now. So I'm going to have a look in a minute when away from the camera because I can't really see from here, but you want to make sure you haven't got one shoulder much thicker than the other, and I actually can't see at the moment. So that's got to be a nice smooth transition there. Under here we've got two bits where we've trimmed the finished fabric on the inside. Now you can either trim those away or use them to help disguise the wiring that's underneath there. In fact, I think I'll use them. I've got plenty of this fabric anyway, so they'll stay there, and it just helps as another layer to cover up the wire. So that's the principle of fitting the leg. When you're happy with how this is at the sides, which I will check in a minute to make sure, if it's too fat one side, either take it some out or add to the other side, whichever preference you have. Once you're happy with that, then you just stitch around the top here, and we can take off the excess or leave it because you'll be patching over it anyway, and that would be the front two legs done. And it's the same principle for the back, though I will go through it with you. I don't think there's much more to say really, but make sure you've got a nice firm filling there, because you're obviously going to patch over that in a minute anyway. So now we come on to the back ones, and just remember that you've got, again, your finished fabric on the inside. So I'll take the pin out the top there. I can feel the tube at the base and at the top, so I reveal it. Be careful you don't end up by trying to get this on and having wadding wedged down the tube, because otherwise that will it'll not work. So that's this one. These ones might be slightly harder because you have got the curve in the leg to deal with as well, but it will go, I can assure you. Having said that, I have just got a bit of wadding stuck down the tube, so if there's too much, just take it out. So the tube again goes right up to the join there. Yeah, that's what it was. There was a bit of wadding stuck in the tube, so just be aware of that. And then for the next one, I'm going to make absolutely sure that the wadding is lower than the tube. So yeah, that's the problem. Okay, and for this one, I'm doing this in real time, I'm not going to cheat. There you go, the tube is just right at that joint there. So it's the same process, but only slight difference on this back one is that it is at that angle. So again on the inside, trim off your under fabric, this one, to the joint. Do it in stages because you don't want to take off too much, although it doesn't really matter. I suppose you could just put a patch on it. So that needs more. You can see that's still not quite at the joint there, so again about another almost an inch there we can trim, snip. And even more in fact. Right, I'm going to pin there and see what that does. Okay. So that looks about right as far as the angle's concerned, and now we need to pad this void. So do as you did with the last one and just get a nice amount of wadding down there. So there's the idea so far, and now is the time, I think, as I said to you, to have a good look at it. Make sure you're happy with the way these are done. For example, that one is slightly more proud than that, so that could do with a couple of millimetres more to denote that sort of join there. And then on the other side, well, those ones are about right. That looks okay. When you've done this to this stage, then take a look at the front legs. I can't get it far enough away, I don't think, but so that they look aesthetically pleasing, and that they're the right sort of shape. The back legs, well, you've obviously got this shape. This one's slightly further forward, that one's further back, and the standing of it, you can adjust the standing later. If yours doesn't stand straight away, you can just move the legs forward. The front ones you might want to move apart, make it more stable. When you do that, if you are doing it, hold the joint and then just move the leg further apart, and it will move. You might want to have it a little bit more bent in the middle. Choice is yours really, but obviously it's got to stand. So if that means one leg is slightly higher, just not quite on the ground, then move it forward or backward until it is actually on the ground. But it's sort of designed to stand like that anyway, and of course there'd be more rigidity when these legs are fitted and this is nice and close, or the fabric is nice and close up underneath the body. So I think what I'm going to do now, I didn't show you the back end, did I? But not so easy to see. But again, from the back end, just make sure that your two thighs are about right. You can trim this fabric down. You can see what's underneath there. It's the metal work, but I think I'm going to keep that there because that's nice and flat, and then maybe put this one over and stitch it in place and then patch over top. It's just that the more fabric will disguise the metal work. So I'm going to check the actual that I'm happy with the wadding first, and if I am, then I'm going to do a really strong stitch all the way around here to keep it in place, and again round the back as well, and I'll come back and show you when I've done that. My legs are attached now. I'll just show you how I've done that. Let's have a look. It's probably better like that. So the outer shell, that's been stitched all the way around now, so that's nice and firm, and that inner part of the leg has been stitched to cover up the wiring there, so that helps to disguise it, and so you don't feel it so much. So you can see now the advantage of having that piece, the inner leg, done in your finished fabric, because you haven't got to go into all these corner bits, which makes it quite difficult. So that's the front section done, and again what I've done is to where I've trimmed it to the point where the joint is so that you can fit it nicely, those excess flaps I actually didn't trim much of because I've used those to cover up the wiring. So that's all nice and taut all the way around the top of the legs. Don't know what that's doing there. So stitched really well in place, both sides. So the next bit I think to do would be the underbody, because once that's done, once you've finished this off nicely, your side panels you can bring down to go over top of it. Otherwise, if you do your side patching, this underbody is going to stick on top. That's not the right way to do it. So what I'm suggesting you do, you can do it any way you like, but what I'm suggesting, you go back to using your underbody back and your underbody front. I'll do a dotted line on the pattern so that, because you don't need to do the whole of this end of it, that's the front bit that goes up his chest. But what you could do is to cut out that section and this one without the seam allowance on it, so it's going to be quite a bit smaller, and you'd probably need it even smaller than that, because what you've done is you've put the legs in the way. But by doing that, it does mean then that you've got a nice piece of fabric to go all in one piece, right from his bottom, right underneath here, and up to about this point. That's where you need it. So then that's all nicely covered up, and then your side panels your side patches will come down to meet it. So I'm going to do that now, and hopefully show you the result of that. So obviously these patches are going to be carrying on up here and going over, and that's the bottom area. So that's covered up that wiring quite nicely, and it still stands, and that will get more secure as you put your as these are fitted on, and then of course once the feet are on as well. And remember, the base or the feet, if you get wadding come out, don't worry too much, because we're going to be addressing those soon anyway. Now the underbody parts that I was telling you about, which is called the body, the underbody back and the underbody front. So I've cut those out slightly narrow, well, less the seam allowance, and I've used that as a strip to go and cover up his underbody. and that's obviously gone over top of the extension pieces from the front legs. As you can see, they're extending around there, and along the back as well. So it makes a nice neat finish. So now anything patches you bring down the side will go over top of that, and which will make it easier. So the next job is to continue the patching of the rest of the legs, the body and the head.